Hello, all, and welcome to Bring Your Own Chair, a CX Accelerator podcast. This unique resource is all about you, the CX professional who is out there navigating your career journey. We've got so many incredible people in this community who care deeply about equipping the next generation of CX leaders, and we are bringing them to you. Whether you're looking for encouragement,
but there's no more important time than now to learn the skills, the talent, get the advice and mentorship you need to be able to demonstrate your ROI.
Equipping.
How do you develop your frontline supervisors so that they really are focused on results and relationships?
Or connection.
And I loved it, as crazy as that is, but I only loved it because I had support from the community.
We've got a space for you at this table. So grab your chair and let's welcome our host, Sally Mildren.
Welcome to Bring Your Own Chair, a podcast by CX Accelerator designed for CX professionals, customer success, and service career-oriented folks who need help and support to grow, to be empowered in their career. We're excited to have you here, and we are so excited about today's lesson. I'm Sally Mildren, your host. I'm the CEO of Clarity PX, where we focus on customer experience in healthcare. But today's guest is so exciting. Karin Hurt is here to share her insights and wisdom on a question we hear often in the CX Accelerator community. How do I grow my career without losing myself? Karin is a speaker, a co-founder of Let's Grow Leaders, a leadership development company, and an award-winning author of 4 books, including Courageous Cultures and Winning Well, which talks all about how to get results without losing yourself. She's uniquely qualified to help guide us today in this conversation. Karin, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's absolutely my pleasure.
I'm so excited about our conversation because we hear this question all the time. The young up-and-coming leaders in experience and in customer service are trying to find that balance. And so we were delighted that you said you'd be here. Today, we have a special surprise. We're going to dive into some leadership principles right away with Karin. And at the end of the segment, we have a little special section called Asking for a Friend, which you may be familiar with if you are a Karin Hurt follower. So we have a member of our CX Accelerator community coming on live to ask questions and get help on some specific issues that are on the top of mind right now. So Karin, tell us a little bit about how you got into this world of work. You transitioned from Verizon Wireless as an executive. How did you and why did you get into this line of work about leadership development?
So especially since you are serving the CX community, this I think will be interesting for some folks. At Verizon, I had a variety of jobs. My first decade was all in HR, leadership development, organizational development, merger integration. But then the second decade was a variety of field assignments, and including leading a 2,200 person sales team and a 10,000 person customer service organization. Well, my last job at Verizon was to help transform what we called our strategic partnership channel, which was all the outsourced contact centers that were taking Verizon's calls. And what had happened was, now this will feel like ancient history to many of you, but there was a moment in time where Verizon was not allowed to sell the iPhone. AT&T had exclusive rights. Well, as you can imagine, the minute those rights shifted over and Verizon was in that game, you can imagine what happened to call volumes. It was like an overnight switch cut to just an ocean of new calls with people wanting to come over. Well, with that, Verizon had made this decision we can't do it internally. So they built up all this capacity, 33 contact centers, very, very quickly. And if you've been in the CX business for a while, you really can't ramp up a 500 or 1,000 person call center in 6 weeks.
Right.
So what had happened was we had all these, bless their heart, BPOs working extremely hard to create a great customer experience, but they needed support, right? And so I've been asked to, because of my experience in building cultures, was, would I leave the sales role that I was in, and would I come in and go just work with these call centers and, figure out, first of all, did we need to close any of them, which is a terrible job to take over. And I said, well, here's the thing. What if we got to parity with internal centers, no matter who takes the call? What if that is the mission? Because that feels like a fun job. And so I spent 3 years in these call centers working with the senior executives in these BPOs, thinking about things like, how do you do effective coaching when you've got high call volumes? How do you still do that when people are still in a nesting stage? Because they do need that support, but you can't take them offline to do all the coaching that you might necessarily want. How do you develop your frontline supervisors so that they really are focused on results and relationships, because you don't want this high turnover that what we were seeing? How do you help people connect to the greater vision of the work that they're doing so that they're finding meaning in their work? And so what I was noticing was I was telling the same stories again and again, and I was trying to break down what I knew intuitively and how I had been leading for the last 20 years into very practical tools and techniques, simplifying it. Mm-hmm. And so as I was doing this, I started a blog, mostly so the supervisors and managers and executives in these call centers would have access to my stuff, because of co-employment, I wasn't allowed to go in and do training for them, right? That would have been across the line, but they could read a public blog. And so that was really the intention. Well, the blog started getting this major international following. I started showing up on all these lists of best leadership blogs. People were calling, can you be our keynote speaker? When are you writing your book? And I'm like, wait, what? I have this day job that is keeping me very busy. No, I can't do that. And one of the vice presidents of one of these contact centers said, look, Karin, I am on the board for International Customer Service Association. Can you be our keynote speaker? Look, we're not going to pay you. There will not be any conflict of interest. Just come, tell the story about what we've been doing. And I'm like, well, that sounds like fun. Yeah. So I went, I gave this keynote, I'd walk off the stage, and Shep Hyken, who many of you may know, very well known in the CX community, was the next speaker. And he looks at me and he said, hi, when are you leaving Verizon? And I said, what? Oh my gosh, did I say that from the stage? Because I was so nervous with my first keynote. I didn't know what I had said. He said, no, you are clearly meant to do this for a living. Like, your passion is oozing through. You have a natural presence on the stage. You can help more people than just at Verizon. If you decide that you want to leave, call me. I'm the president of the National Speakers Association.
Nice.
So I did. I went home and I really thought about it, because I was loving what I was doing with, as this side gig. And I thought, well, what if I could do that? And that was a very scary decision, because I had a good job with a good salary, and just to go and start something completely new. But I thought, I think it's what I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
So I gave Verizon 4 months notice. So, I wanted all the momentum to continue.
Yeah.
And I went out on my own. And that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
So, yeah. And now we work with organizations all over the world, from some big brands that you would recognize like Nestle and Amazon, to fast growing tech startups, not just in contact centers. Work with all across a variety of industries. Healthcare is a big one for us.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and we're really known for practical, it's still the same as the origins, practical, human-centered tools and techniques.
I love that, because when we work with organizations all over, and I've had a long corporate career in healthcare as well, and so often that help comes in that isn't practical. It's idealistic, and it just causes overwhelm, and often is a several $100,000 PowerPoint deck that gets put in a pile to do later. So I love your approach. I've looked at some of your work, and I find myself talking out loud going, yes, humans at the center. I love that. So today for our topic, we really want to dive in on the idea of your book, Winning Well. How do you really grow and get results as a leader without losing yourself? I yesterday was a guest on a different podcast, and the host asked me that very question. It wasn't planned, but he was wanting advice on, how do I do this and grow and do this meaningful work without abandoning and losing who I am as a human. And when we spoke before, you had suggested that there are some key leadership foundational principles that will really help our listeners. So why don't we dive into that, and then we'll have our asking for a friend later.
Sounds good. Okay. So we always start when we're doing foundational leadership training, we always start with we call them 6 concepts you can't lead without. And it really starts, the first 2 are, how do you show up with confidence and humility focused on results and relationships? And because you can't possibly give you a tool for every single situation you're going to encounter. But if you pause, so you got a angry customer on the loan, you're on the phone, you got this massive escalation going on, pause. How do I show up in this moment with confidence that I am an expert in this and I'm going to solve this problem for this customer, and humility to not just start spouting off all our policies, humility to say, let me really show up curious in this moment about what's going on. And say you're taking the escalation, also confidence that you can help this agent or representative to get where they need to be, and the humility that you may not know the whole story about what they've been experienced, so you don't judge right away. So it's confidence and humility. And then focusing on results and relationships. You can think about, how do I focus on results and relationships for the customer? Well, I got to get results, right? I want to leave them with a great promoter experience, but I've also got other results I got to manage, right? I got to worry about, I can't just credit them back all the things, and I've got HT I got to worry about. So I got all these results that are on my mind. And what about the relationships? How am I showing up in this moment, supporting the agent? How am I showing up, building a genuine empathetic connection with the customer? So those concepts work externally and they work internally in your leadership. Right. And we call it landing in the and, because when you're losing what we call manager's guide to getting results without losing your soul. When you're losing your soul, we're not talking about religion, right? We're talking about, I have either feeling pressured to do a win at all costs mentality, and then I don't feel good about the work that I'm doing. Right. And you see that, like when you see like trickle down intimidation, right? The executive walks in and sees something bad going on and they freak out, and then that freaks out. That's losing your soul, yourself.
Right.
And how do you not, when you land in the and, you don't have to script everything. And I think that's one of the things that we also see in contact centers. Sometimes it's funny, I'm working on our next book, and the chapter begins, I'm talking about invisible at work, when people are feeling invisible at work. And there's this whole work human study that just came out, and there are like 30% of people are saying they're feeling invisible at work right now. And I'm like, that can happen in call centers, where people feel like they're have to hide behind a script, or they feel like they're being treated like an AI bot when they're sitting there as a genuine human being. Right. And so how do you tap into that? Land in the end, confidence and humility, focus on results and relationships. And that's about all the theory, because if you could just do that and do that well, you're already winning without losing yourself.
I agree. I've led a call center, and those 2 things alone would have resolved a lot of things.
Yeah. And I mean, I in call centers, I really like to focus on the first 40 seconds of the call.
Yeah.
You know, you show up as an interested expert. In that first 40 seconds, you've got the person has confidence that you know what you're doing. You are going and empathetic and humble and curious. You're already winning. So confidence and humility, results in relationships. And then we talk about focusing on the MIT, the most important thing. And this one we unpack a lot in Winning Well and in our programs. But when we talk about the most important thing, it's what is the most important thing strategically?
Yes.
Right? Like, what are you really going to nail this year? Then what is the most important initiatives? So maybe you've got a new Net Promoter Score initiative, or you've got things that you're doing. Maybe you're implementing an AI thing that you've got to teach people about. So strategic, your initiatives, then your activities that you're going to do to accomplish those initiatives. But most important, in a CX environment, what are the daily behaviors that people are going to do? Are they documenting the account when they're supposed to be documenting the account? Are they using the customer's name? Are they asking the strategic questions? Are they bridging to another sale that you're asking them? Are they, making sure that they're thanking people for the loyalty? Whatever those behaviors are, and you can't have 27.
Right.
Right. It's like, what are the 3 things that you
Right.
need everybody doing on every call? And I find that is a big mistake a lot of people make in contact centers. They've got this checklist of 27 things that they expect agents to do.
And have an average handle time of 1 minute or less.
Right. So pick the ones that are going to matter. I was working with one call center company, and their 4 were, does the customer know how much we care? Did we show up with empathy in this call? Right. So number 1, was there a wow factor on the call? Meaning, as I'm listening to the call, would the customer have hung up and go, wow, that was really helpful? Did we provide clear and accurate information, table stakes? Yeah. And then for them, did we document the account in case somebody were to call back in, the customer doesn't have to repeat their story. And, as we were working with them, I took what was their 57 point checklist, and I went to the VPs and I was like, we're going to pick 4. Well, I said 3, and then I let them get away with 4 because I did agree documenting the account was vital, right? They just made a cover to their 57. Now they still could, if their customer, if their agent was doing things that were in these other ones that was a problem, they could always coach to that. But on every call, we said we're going to focus 90% of the conversation on those 4. That changed the trajectory of their customer experience substantially, practically overnight. That's mine, the MIT. So we're showing up with confidence and humility. We're focusing on results and relationships, and we're minding the MIT. Those are the top 3. And then we talk about communicating consistently, that if something is strategically important, say you want everybody documenting the account. Say that's a problem for you, perhaps. Well, don't just say that once in a staff meeting or in your kickoff. You are going to be communicating that 5 times, 5 different ways. You're going to be reinforcing it. You're going to do it on your Zoom call. You're going to follow up with an email. You're going to do it in your observations. You're going to do it in your one-on-ones. You're going to do it in your offsite. So that it is such a cadence that people are like, I get it, that it's important. So, and then checking for understanding. This is, are people picking up what you're putting down, having people repeat back to you what they're hearing? And because communication is always a send and as a receive. That is so basic that I didn't even think it belonged in our book, Winning Well. David, my husband and co-author, was like, Karin, it belongs in our book, Winning Well.
Yes.
And you know that no matter what level we're teaching, including CEOs of major corporations, they finish one of our programs and you're like, it's changed the game for us. Check for understanding. And then the last one is scheduling the finish. That, you don't just say, hey, I need this soon, but you actually put a time that we're going. And it's so funny in our programs, we'll say, put your fingers on the keyboard. When I say I need this data soon, chat in, what does soon mean? 24 hours, 48 hours, tomorrow, yesterday, like nobody has the same definition. So that is and we've done that so many times, that is a chronic problem. So just teaching people to schedule the close on things. So those are the big 6. And I can give you an article that outlines those, if that would be helpful to share with your community.
Yeah, and we're going to link in the show notes. We'll have a link to your website. There are some initial chapters of this book available on the website as well, and we'll include that handout and some other resources that we'll tell you about in a little bit. We're really excited about this end session where we are going to bring on Andrea from our CX Accelerator community, and she is going to ask Karin questions live in the hot seat about things that are right on top of her mind. And this section is called Asking for a Friend.
Cool. So my first question is for a person who's very expressive, who can't control their face. What advice do you have for someone who needs help to be able to not have a poker face?
That is so interesting. First of all, because we're working our next book, which is called Powerful Phrases for Dealing with Conflict at Work. And last night I was writing this chapter on your face and your body language. So it's funny that you came up. It's like the universe is making me think about this topic. But the first thing is it is true that it matters, because there is so much evidence that says the words coming out of your mouth, right? If your facial expression says something different, if people have to guess, they're going to go with the face, because that, is more raw. So the first thing I would say is, I would try to get true with yourself. Like, what are you really feeling? Like, what are you feeling here? And are the words that you are saying disingenuous to how you're feeling? And so should you be having this conversation right now? Or do you have to, as my kickboxing instructor says, Karin Hurt, get your head right. So do you need to should you be pausing until you can have more integration and be feeling like the words that you were saying and have confidence that the words that you're saying are true? And do you have the words? Like, why is your face not saying what your words are saying? Do you need to adjust your words? Do you need to show up with confidence and humility and to be more direct about what you're saying? And part of what I see is like where people's faces will get wonky is like if they're trying to do something like the sandwich technique, and we are not believers in the sandwich technique. If you're not familiar with that, is where you say something nice and then you say what you really want to say, and then you say something nice. Now that is so like confusing to people, right? And that's probably when your face is getting screwed up. So, because you're saying something nice, but it's not really what you want to. You really want to get to the point that you got to get to. And so we're big believers in giving people all the feedback they need, but not necessarily in the same sentence. So if you're coming in late is a real problem, I'm not going to start with your dress looks beautiful today, right? I'm going to say, you know what? Your shift started at 9. I noticed that you came in at 9:10. That's a real problem because of this. What are you going to do? What do you think you can do to make sure that you're here on time? And so I can say that without my face getting wild. So that's the first thing. The other thing is we have so many opportunities now because of remote work, is to play back videos and watch your face, or watch your face. Like I can see my face right now. And it's funny because my husband and co-author, David, when he concentrates, when he's really listening to someone, he gets this face. It's like, and I'm like, you can't do that. He doesn't mean it. He is not angry. He is really, really trying to listen to what our client is saying on the other end of the phone. And so just to be aware that that is happening, and so I'll like write him a little note, like, your face, watch your face. So I think that's part of it the first thing is, is your face screwed up because you're not saying something that is not consistent with what you really believe? And then how do you get integrity with your messaging? And then the other is to pay attention to the inadvertent faces that you don't actually mean.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Good. What else?
So there's the mentality of do more with less. How do you try to do more, but also maintain your boundaries?
So the first thing I can tell you, and that this is also very interesting, it's almost like you have a camera in my office here, because I just had this CEO of a client, long-term leadership development relationship, and they just went through a downsizing because of a shift in some of the business in the markets. And, nobody likes to go through a downsizing. And he said, oh, people are starting to say, do more with less. And I'm like, saying do more with less is probably one of those hot sentences that ticks everybody off, because they're already feeling overwhelmed. And now I have less resources and you want me to do more? Are you kidding me? No wonder people are feeling frustrated, burned out, and disengaged. So it's not about doing more with less. It is about what we talked about in this earlier segment is mind the MIT. What are the most important things? And how do you get your team really aligned on what's going to matter most? It was interesting when I took on my very first contact center job, my boss, Maureen, handed me a scorecard of 27 items on it. And she looked at me and she said, Karin, I was director, so I had about 500 agents. She's like, which of these metrics are you going to fail at? I said, I'm not going to fail at any of these, Maureen. And she said, here's the thing. You can't possibly push your team to achieve all of these things equally. If you're going to drop a ball, I want you and I to be perfectly aligned on which of these things matter least. And so that's where I would say, focus your team. Don't go to them. Just don't let yourself say those words, do more with less. Even if your boss tells you to go say those words, find a different way. Instead, say, what is it that will make, what do we need to knock out of the park? And focus on those. So, it was interesting when I was in my sales role, leading a 2,200 person sales team at Verizon. There are so many things that they wanted my store employees to do. Just so many things. Sell insurance, sell accessories, sell the new promotion, upgrade to smartphones, review the account. And I was like, what are we going to do that is going to make the major difference here? And I'm going to focus on those things. And what I found, and we talk about this in chapter 6 of Courageous Cultures, was that if we could focus to find the small business people coming into our stores, rather than just like ask every customer where they work to see if they owned a small business, we could then bring in phones 5, 10, 20, 30 lines at a time. Now, if I sell 120 line account, that's a lot of other people I have to sell 1 or 2 at a time. So that became a most important thing. So I didn't go to my team saying, hey, you got to just sell more. I said, you got to find the small business customers. So I gave them the how, right? That team quadrupled their sales. We won all kinds of awards for customer growth. But I wasn't saying, you need to sell Androids, you need to sell smartphones, you need to sell this, you need to sell that. No, one thing. And so it's helping to simplify your asks for your team. And of course, we still had to sell accessories, but I had a lot of forgiveness that my accessory take rate was mediocre because I was bringing in so much revenue in other ways. And so I think, but you got to know what the most important things are. And if you don't, ask your boss, like, what does success really, really look like here?
Ooh, wow. Thank you.
Sure.
Let's see. My other question, I have 2 more, I think. So I have an agent in my contact center that I'm not specifically dealing with. And the problem is they tend to take feedback as an attack on their character. How do I to make sure that I'm talking about behaviors and not that person?
That is one of my favorite questions. And we could also put a link in the show notes about how to have a performance feedback conversation, because we have an INSPIRE method for doing that. And INSPIRE is an acronym. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but the magic of that model is the P and the I, the probe and the invite. And so when you're talking about, so say you've got an agent and they have a bad attitude. Well, the very worst thing you could say, this is almost worse than do more with less. The very worst thing you could say to somebody with a bad attitude is you have a bad attitude, right? But maybe they do have a bad attitude. So what is it? And I like to say, what if you took out your phone? Don't actually do this, but what if you took out your phone and recorded what you're seeing and then play it back and go, what is it that I'm interpreting as a bad attitude? And get as specific as you can be in terms of behaviors, right? And so then you can say, so I've noticed that not you have a bad attitude. I have noticed that you are cutting off your peers in our staff meetings before they finish their sentences. For example, yesterday, Jessica brought up an idea that she had. And before she finished her sentence, you said, we've tried that before. It's never going to work. Okay. So now I've talked about a behavior, and that behavior is hard to argue with, right? If it's true, right? I'm assuming that she actually did that thing. But then you don't say, so stop it. Instead, you ask a curiosity question. I'm curious. What's going on? Why do you think that keeps happening? Now, at this point, they're going to say, well, they have a variety of things they could say, but at least you know where their head is. They could say, everybody else on the team is stupid, right? But now you have more data. Or they could say, I just get really frustrated because our meetings seem to go on and on. Other people seem to dominate the conversation. I really wish that we had a better way so everybody's voice could be heard. All right, well, now you have data about something else, right? And so it's showing up curious. And then the I in this model is you invite them to come up with the solution to the behavior that you're looking to change. This is psychology 101, right? If I tell you you should stop smoking, you may or may not stop smoking. But if you have an epiphany and say, I'm sick of feeling this way, I'm going to stop smoking, you're more likely to stop smoking, right? So it's the same thing. What do you think you could do so that you can show up more supportive to your peers in our staff meetings? Well, gosh, I guess I really could wait till they finish and then repeat back what I've heard before offering my point of view. Yeah, fantastic. I think that would be great. So it's two things. It's getting very specific about behaviors, not attitudes. And then it's showing up curious, asking open-ended questions, and then inviting them to come up with a solution.
Wow. Okay. That's great. So I asked this one in the Customer Experience Accelerator, but I'm going to ask this to you because I think it's important. So context, I am the only woman in leadership in customer experience. And because my field is very men dominated, I struggle with knowing my worth. So in my heart, in my head, I say, okay, I deserve to be here and I deserve to have a voice. And sometimes I struggle with imposter syndrome or understanding that why am I really here? So what advice do you have to get over that?
Oh, wow. I'm sorry. I keep hearing this and I keep wishing that we were past this at this point in the world, right? But first, I would say own your strengths. Like there is a reason that you are in that job. What is it? Like what makes you a rock star in your role? So I'm going to ask you that right now. Like what do you think makes you a rock star in your role? Like what are you really good at?
Making sure that the agents are taken care of in their role, making sure that are they breathing? Are they paying attention to their metrics? Are they okay? And then also making sure that I understand the data. The nerd brain part of me is like, yes, quality assurance. Let's do this.
Okay. Good. In contact centers, those are two really, really important things to be good at, right? So you care about developing your agents and you care about their well-being.
Right.
101, important, right? And that is like that. If you're going to be good at something, that's the thing to be good at. And you have an analytical brain that you are bringing to the team and you can look at data and understand what it means so that you can make choices, decisions, development, right? So that you're not just looking at data to look at data, you're looking at data to be strategic. So you're adding strategic value. So I would own those and say, and one of the things that I see mostly women, sadly, do, especially if they're in a male dominated, is that they will do what we call a pre-apology. So instead of saying, hey, I have an idea. This data is showing us this. I have an idea. I think we need to start monitoring the first 40 seconds of the calls because that's where we're losing. Okay? That's what's causing repeat calls. People lack confidence and then they're hanging up and they're calling back in and we have a repeat call problem. So you have data. I'm making this up. I don't know if that's a problem for you, but you have data and you're saying it with confidence. I have an idea. This is what we should do. Instead, what is tempting to do is to say, well, I'm not sure if this is the approach. There's lots of different ways we could do this. We could do it this way, or we could do it that way. I don't want to overstep my bounds here, but the data to me kind of says this. The sharks will get you, right? And so if you are confident in what you want to do, instead of saying all that, cut the words and say, I have an idea that is going to improve the customer experience. I have an idea. This is what that idea will do. Right? And to say that with confidence. And then I would also say is, if there are areas that you are weaker in, Don't let that suck away your self-esteem. Just find other people on the team who can supplement that. So I will tell you, I mean, this is going to make your stomach hurt when I hear this story. But when I first took on that first director job of call centers, I had never taken a call in my life. I was in HR for 10 years. I didn't know access. I had no access to our systems. I didn't know anything, but because of my leadership ability, I had been put into this job to lead large teams. I was on the steepest learning curve you can imagine. Well, we were dealing with large enterprise customers. On my very first day in this job, I get a call from the Bank of America. Their ATM network had gone down. There was a massive crisis. I got the head of IT, Bank of America, calling me and saying, what are you going to do to fix this? Right? I have zero idea. I have zero idea. He's using acronyms and vocabulary and gigawatt. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I said, I am so sorry that this is happening, and I am confident that we can get this fixed. Can I put you on hold for one moment? And I called my friend Dan, who was a director of customer service in New York. And I said, I'm going to conference you in, and can you just IM me what to say? And we faked our way through that call. And I mean, I obviously had to learn how to do that. I couldn't be successful in that role, so I had to learn all the things. But what am I good at? I'm good at showing up with confidence, and I'm good at using my network, right? And and it wasn't disingenuous to the customer. We got it fixed. So I think I could have been really intimidated on the call, and I could have said, you know what, I have no idea. This is my first day here, right? What is that going to do to the customer experience? So I think that's part of it, is owning your strengths and saying, what do I know, and how do I show up with confidence in that moment?
Wow, that's great.
That is so amazing. Thank you for that session. Thank you, Andrea, for your great questions. I, first of all, want to just honor your vulnerability and your openness to coaching. And Karin, wow, our minds are blown. I mean, we could probably ask you questions all day and be enriched. So we're very excited. I want to encourage our listeners and our followers to get the books. They are practical. They're relevant, just like the advice you've heard here today. That's exactly how the books are written. And I am excited to know when your third book's coming out.
Yeah, so next spring. So maybe we'll come on again and we can talk about that then.
Sure. We'll look forward to that. And so also, Karin is offering to all of our listeners a free ebook, Practical Ways to Be More Daring. And we'll put the link in the show notes as well. So on behalf of CX Accelerator, on all of our listeners and our professionals across the globe, Karin, thank you very much. It's been our honor to have you here. We're excited to learn from you and continue to see your journey expand, which is pretty impressive. So be sure to check out Karin's website, her books, all the things in the show notes. And if you're a CX professional hearing this for the first time and you aren't part of our CX Accelerator, it's a free nonprofit community on Slack that is designed entirely to inspire, to empower, and to support you at any place in your career, from leadership advice to specific technology things. And we will be exploring them all here on this podcast. Thanks for joining us for Bring Your Own Chair.
In this episode, you'll find some great leadership advice, not only for innovative leaders, but even for work managers. From the 6 key leadership principles to meeting the mental needs of your teams, there are tips for helping people feel seen at work, how to coach, and some toxic ideas that we need to get away from. Thank you, Karin and Sally, for sharing your insights and connecting this community once more. And thank you for joining Bring Your Own Chair, a CX Accelerator podcast. Make sure you get involved with the CX Accelerator community at cxaccelerator.com. Consider recommending this episode or podcast to someone in your network and give them a seat at the table.